So children being forced to the center of the Green New Deal debate, effective strategy or bound to backfire. Let's bring in New York City public advocate candidate Namiki Const and the former governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee. Great to have both of you with us tonight.
Hi, Shannon and Mike.
All right, I want to play a little bit of what the Congresswoman had to say on Friday about the fact that she says, listen, everybody's coming after my Green New Deal, but they're not proposing anything. So in the meantime, here's where things stand.
And I'm like, you try. You do it.
Right.
Because you're not. So until you do it, I'm the boss.
That's
How about
right.
that?
Governor, she's the boss.
I love it.
I thought when people get elected, they were servants, not bosses. I'm just startled by this. But listen, I don't want her to stop talking. I want her to continue to be the voice and face of the Democratic Party, because nothing is going to be more helpful to Republicans and specifically to President Trump's reelection than continuing to have this kind of stuff going on as if it's to be taken seriously. And her comment about maybe people shouldn't have children because it would affect climate change. I mean, that's as over the top as anything I've ever heard. I'm going to say maybe liberals shouldn't reproduce, but those of us on the other side think it's okay. We'll continue to enjoy our kids and grandkids.
All right. Well, Namiki, to that point, she's talking about the threats to the environment. Has talked about 12 years left before the planet implodes. Well, there are new estimated costs on this Green New Deal, up to $93 trillion. The data says that's a cost of $600,000 per U.S. household. They said if you taxed every household in the U.S. earning over $30,000 a year at 100%, in 10 years you still couldn't pay for it. I mean, that sounds like, if those numbers are anywhere in the ballpark, I mean, that's a threat to kids' futures too.
Well, the whole concept of the Green New Deal, that's just flawed. The whole concept of the Green New Deal is that the wealthiest of the wealthiest, the 0.1%, are the ones who pay the taxes, because they're the ones who are really endangering our environment. These multinational corporations who are really causing emissions to release. I mean, the developers in New York, let's just start with that. New York City, which had a hurricane just a few years ago, in which people still don't have their homes in parts of Brooklyn and parts of Queens. In New York City, the place that generates more wealth than anywhere on the planet, they still don't have homes because of a hurricane. We produce, most of our emissions comes from buildings. The real estate developers barely pay any taxes, and they're the ones who don't want to crack down and retrofit their buildings. So when you look at the big business, it's the people who don't want to pay taxes. The big business doesn't want to pay taxes.
But Namiki, this
it's
is
not
saying
going to be on average
if you tax people who make $30,000 and up.
That's not the Green New Deal, though.
But everyone who makes $30,000 or up, you'd have to take 100% of their income for 10 years,
Green New Deal.
and you still wouldn't pay for it.
That is the Fox News version.
That's
of the
not the Fox
Green New
News
Deal.
version. This is the American Action Form. It's not ours.
Exactly. A random organization. The actual policy of the Green New Deal is to tax the elite who are really endangering the next generation.
Governor, and I am saying this does include the top tax earners. It's $30,000 and up, Governor. And still you're not going to get there.
It's totally unrealistic. It cannot be done. You can't take away every single productive piece of profit that people make. You know, the year before that Ocasio-Cortez was born, in 1989, there were people who said that if we didn't take immediate and drastic action to get rid of fossil fuels, by the year 2000, the whole world would turn into a great big, complete ball of fire. Well, guess what? We somehow got through the year 2000. Now, I'm not saying there's not a climate change, but on the other hand, I thought the whole idea that liberals believed about selection, survival of the fittest and the selection process was that we are always adapting to change. I guess that's not the case.
All right, final word to you, Namiki, quick.
Well, the reality is that the most impoverished communities, the most marginalized communities, are the first to be affected by climate change. I mean, the facts are out. This isn't about climate change, whether or not you believe it anymore. It's about survival. We are over-consuming. We're overpopulated on this planet. Our water, our fish are not healthy anymore. And that is because we are polluting, whether it's the air pollutants or the chemical pollutants. I mean, this is what's affecting the next generation.
Namiki.
And the largest generation in history, if they have children, that is going to continue to overpopulate.
Okay, so
we have to be more responsible.
No more kids?
I think we have to be much more responsible.
Okay,
I mean, not
Governor
only do we have to
says
crack down on emissions, but we have to be more responsible.
Okay.
You know,
we got to leave it there. Governor says lots of kids.
Next generation.
You say think about it. Okay,
yes,
Namiki.
think about it.
Governor Huckabee, great to have both of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Author and columnist Mark Stein was also watching last night and joins us. So, Mark, you got to say of the Hollywood people, I mean, they do care deeply. Wouldn't you say much more deeply than a person like you cares?
Yeah, they do. They care, and that was the message. They cared at length. That guy you had on now saying that movies give a voice to the voiceless. I have to laugh. They did that all night long. They say movies give a voice to the voiceless shortly before they cut off the microphone of the best sound editing guy because his co-winner has gone long on her speech. So it was literally hypocritical as we watched. You know, Lisa said she just wanted to have fun. You mentioned a few decades ago the Oscar shows were a big deal, and they were conventional shows of that type. They've gotten rid of everything. They've gotten rid of the song and dance. They've gotten rid of the jokes. They've gotten rid of the host. They got rid of the gowns. The gowns were frumpy last night, except for Billy Porter in that, what did he call it, a tuxedo dress. That was the only time I felt the rustle of taffeta. So he was the only one I would have asked to dance with at the post-Oscar ball. They got rid of the thank yous to Harvey Weinstein, which constituted 40% of the Oscar time of the last 20 years. And all that left was this pious, earnest virtue signaling, which I think they think because they bottomed out and they got a little bit of an uptick of an audience, that in fact they now have a core audience that actually doesn't want fun, to go back to Lisa's word, that is just much more comfortable with the pious, earnest, boring virtue signaling and is happy just to stick with that for its own sake, because for some reason
but I wonder,
it makes them feel good.
Do they? I mean, Hollywood in some ways is over. It's diminishing in its power and its reach. The technology has been surpassed by others. But I wonder if they're kind of just going through the motions. Like, this is what you have to say if you're a director or an actor. You have to make these noises. Or do you think they still believe them?
Well, I think Spike Lee certainly does. He walked out because whatever it's called, Green Door, whatever it is, Green Room won the Best Picture. I think he does actually mean it. I think most of the other people reading glassy-eyed from the teleprompter, one thing is fascinating to me, the world's greatest actors and actresses, they can play any role on the planet, but they can't read a dull, teleprompted, leaden piece of prose about giving voice to the voiceless and put any life into it. They're just awful prompter readers. You would clean up at the Oscars for Best Prompter Reader, Tucker, way ahead of Julia Roberts or any of these other stars. They just can't do it. And so I think they are just going through the motions, and they're doing it because this is just part of what it means to be an actor. 20 years ago, you had to give Harvey Weinstein a back rub when he asked you up to his hotel room. Now you just have to genuflect to transgender rights or whatever is this year's fashion. They're just doing what they need to do to keep themselves in work.
Did anybody say anything artistic, which is to say unexpected, interesting, against the grain, radical, or was it all just approved thoughts?
No, it was approved thoughts. And again, to go back to Lisa's word, fun, what was interesting to me was that there was no wit or charm or even any sense of joy or pleasure in the event. That was what was palpable almost. Even when you listen to someone like Spike Lee, you sort of sense the grievance. A guy who's getting a statuette for making a movie, and he somehow feels obliged to talk about America's genocide of its native people, is sort of oddly trivial. If you seriously believe it's genocide, it's actually trivializing of that. To connect it to you getting some crummy award for Best Adapted Screenplay. I don't think there's anything serious about this. They've taken out all the joy, all the charm, all the wit, all the fun, and they haven't found anything to put in its place.
Wow. I don't even, they've lost the power even to offend me. That's how banal it is.
That's a downer, Tucker. I should do 8 bars of Hooray for Hollywood like the old days, but we don't have that anymore.
Mark Stein, great to see you. Thank you.
Thanks.
The House set to vote today to block President Trump's national emergency declaration. But is this vote even about the border crisis to Democrats?
This isn't about the border. This is about the Constitution of the United States. This is not about politics. It's not about partisanship. It's about patriotism. We would be delinquent in our duties if we did not resist, we did not fight back and to overturn the president's declaration.
Texas Democrat Congressman Joaquin Castro has led the House effort, but the governor of the great state of Texas says there has been an emergency on the border for decades.
And we welcome him now. Texas Governor Greg Abbott joins us right here in studio. Thanks for being here, Governor.
Honored to be here.
The studio just got bigger when Texas shows up. Always.
Everything's bigger in Texas.
Indeed. Talk to us about this. Is there a crisis and are Democrats denying it?
Listen, as Kilmeade was there himself and saw, we had thousands of people gathered just across the Texas border in Eagle Pass, Texas, where there is no fence, there is no wall. It was open. We had to deploy Texas Department of Public Safety troopers as well as the National Guard to make sure that this caravan did not come across the border. Understand this, there are more than 300,000 people coming across the border every year into the state of Texas. Remember the drug busts that have taken place. A couple of weeks ago, there was a massive meth drug bust that took place. And last month, remember, there was more fentanyl, the very dangerous opioid that was found coming across the border that could have killed every man, woman, and child in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. And so this is serious. And the president is authorized by laws that already exist to build fencing on the wall to prevent people from coming in and bringing drugs in. Understand this also.
But Beto O'Rourke says, pull up the fence that's there. We don't need it. It's a joke. This doesn't matter.
Well, we've seen fencing work. Remember when the caravan came to California, it was the fence in California that prevented that caravan from coming across the border, point one. But point two, I've seen the fencing work in Texas. Of
course.
Fencing has been there for more than a decade in the state of Texas and has done a good job of making sure that we're able to address the people who are coming across the border illegally.
And by the way, just so you know, I thought we were on a first-name basis until now. But you did a great job on the special in San Antonio. But we have something else to talk about.
Tell us why you're here in New York.
I'm here because I was invited by some financiers here in New York to make a presentation to them about why it's so much more profitable for them to leave New York and come to the state of Texas. We have a growing and thriving finance industry in the state of Texas, much lower cost, and while New York is imposing more taxes on them, in Texas this session we are working on cutting taxes in Texas.
And these are big companies that want to leave the state of New York because it's so expensive to live here.
These are some brand names that everybody on Wall Street will know very well. People across the country would know very well. I'm not going to give you any names right now, but I will tell you some of the biggest names on Wall Street are thinking about coming to the state of Texas.
You know what? Wow. Amazon's looking for another home because we kicked them out because they were going to be too profitable. Real quick, are you concerned about your red state turning blue with all these Californians and New Yorkers going there?
You know, I'll tell you very interestingly, because exit polls were done in the last election, was up just this past November, and what we found is that almost 60% of the people who have moved to the state of Texas from other states voted for me in the election. And so it's the Republicans who are leaving California, New York, and places like this. It's like what's happening right now. People who are fed up with taxes in New York are coming to Texas.
They vote to raise taxes, then leave us with them.
Well, if they're coming to Texas, they better remember why it is they left New York or left California and leave those bad big government policies
behind. Make sure you
behind.
put that in your pitch. Okay. See how it goes. Governor, always great to see you.
Brian, good to see you.
And I'll see you on radio in a little while.
Sounds great.
Thank you, Governor.